Hey there, deck builders! Thanks for hanging out with me today. I recently had a subscriber get a hold of me asking for help to make his commander deck more consistent. Consistency is definitely one of those things that newer players to the commander format struggle with the most. So naturally I was inspired to create the Let's Deck Tech series. My goal with this series is to help deck builders just like Nick understand their commanders better and make their decks more enjoyable to play. Nick continues on to say, "You're awesome, man." Well, thank you, Nick. That's awfully nice. I'm looking to bring this deck to my LGS for Commander Nights, but the players there all seem to have more consistent decks than mine. I'm currently using Ayli Eternal Pilgrim as my commander. My game plan is to make a lot of tokens, then sacrifice them to gain life. Nick also mentions that he's struggling to figure out which cards to cut in order to add cards like tutors. Well, Nick, hopefully I can help you get this deck in tip-top shape so you can start whipping some people at your LGS. Deck builders, let's deck tech. In Nick's particular deck, I counted up 6 sources of mana ramp. The majority of these mana rocks tend to be 3 mana or higher. Honestly, I'd trade these mana rocks out in favor of more 2-drop mana rock artifacts. It might not seem like it, but I promise you, running quicker mana rock artifacts is going to significantly improve the speed of your deck. Don't stress about price either. A lot of these like Orzhov Signet, Felwar Stone, or Prismatic Lens can be purchased for less than 50 cents each. And frankly, 6 sources of ramp just isn't enough. If you want to make any real impact on the speed or consistency of your deck, that number should be more like 10. In a similar vein to mana ramp is card draw, which I pegged at 5 sources. The majority of these are short-term card draw effects, which might briefly help you out, but over the course of a long game, you're going to find yourself running out of cards. Fortunately for you, you're in black, which gives you access to 2 of the most powerful card draw enchantments in the game. Phyrexian Arena lets you draw 2 cards at every upkeep, and yeah, you lose a life, but who cares? You're going to be gaining a ton anyway. And seeing as your plan is to gain all the life, Necropotent slots in perfectly. Let's say you pay 20 life. That means you draw 20 cards. It's pretty powerful. And seeing as another one of your goals is to make a lot of tokens and have a lot of creatures on the battlefield in general, Skull Clamp and Grim Haruspex fit in perfectly. Don't let your creatures die for nothing. Make sure that their death means more cards in your hand. You could also consider more budget-friendly options like Underworld Connections or Greed. Like with Mana Ramp, I'd recommend upping the amount of card draw spells in your deck from 5 to at least 10. It will dramatically improve the consistency of your deck. When it comes to removal, you're definitely on the right path. 9 sources is pretty good. The goal with your removal should be to steer clear of sorceries and move more towards instant speed spells. And ideally, we want to lower the cost of those spells as much as possible. Typically, you want to run between 1 and 3 mana to cast spells. Low cost, instant speed spells give us the ability to disrupt our opponent's plans at the most inopportune moments for them. If we're trying to hold up 4, 5, or 6 mana to do that, it's really not going to work. There's no need to get complicated, just stick to the classics like Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. These 1 mana white staples are about as good as it gets when it comes to removal. I'd also strongly consider spells like Disenchant, Mortify, Anguished Unmaking, and Return to Dust. Spells like these will give you the confidence to take on any opponent, because you'll always know that no matter what, you'll have an answer to whatever it is they're trying to do. Also, don't forget to include one of the best board wipes out there, Merciless Eviction. This card can absolutely annihilate your opponents. When it comes to the land base, I noticed a handful of lands that all enter the battlefield tapped. It might not seem like it, but lands that enter tapped really slow your deck down. This is especially true in the early game, where lands that enter tapped can prevent you from being able to play your important ramp spells when you actually need to play them. Fortunately, there are a lot of really great Orzhov dual lands out there that fit your scheme really well, like Isolated Chapel and Tainted Field. There's also a score of lands that tap for any color out there, like Gemstone Mine or City of Brass, and I definitely recommend those too. Alright, let's dive into the meat and potatoes here, the things you really want to do. You mentioned that one of your goals is to make a lot of tokens. Now you have some spells that make tokens, but the main issue with these is that they're very high costed. I can understand why creatures like Requiem Angel and Captain of the Watch seem really cool on paper, The problem is, Commander is a game full of board wipes and removal spells. By the time you scrape together the mana to play spells like these, typically, your opponents will already have an answer to get rid of them. SRAM's Expertise is another card that I just don't think is very good. When most of the spells in your deck cost more than 3 mana to cast, you're not really going to trigger its second ability, and 3 1/1 servo tokens is pretty meh. With the way your deck is currently set up, Anointed Procession isn't too terribly great. However, with a few tweaks to your creature base, this card could really shine. For this particular playstyle, I really like Skursdag High Priest. Having the ability to tap down some 1/1 tokens and create 5/5 demons is pretty good. An enchantment that you've included in your deck list that I really like is Spirit Bonds. Having the ability to make spirit tokens whenever you play a creature and then use those spirits to protect your creatures is pretty valuable. I'd also recommend Elenda the Dusk Rose and Pawn of Ulamog. Both are great ways to punish your opponents for playing board wipes or removal spells, and whenever you sacrifice your own creatures, you get awesome benefits. Phyrexian Processor is a dual threat artifact. It fits both your token creating and life gain themes really well. The other benefit with it is any tokens that you make with it, you can sacrifice with Ayli and gain back all of the life you put into it. And naturally, since one of your primary goals is to gain a lot of life, Angelic Accord slots in pretty snugly too. And speaking of life gain, I've gotta say, props to you. So far, you have some good building blocks like Soul's Attendant and Suture Priest already in place. Zulaport Cutthroat and Blood Artist Big Brother Falconwrath Noble are really great here too. Good job getting those guys in. Don't forget to add some of the other members of the Gain and Drain family though, like Authority of the Consuls and Soul Warden. And of course, it just wouldn't be a life gain deck without Blood Artist or Blind Obedience. Blind Obedience is particularly great because not only does it slow your opponents down, it also gives you the Extort ability, which allows for extra gain and drain. Vizkopa Guildmage and Rock's Faith Mender are two more great creature companions. Not only can you gain a ton of life, you can also use it to punish your opponents by draining their life at the same time. And seeing as you'll have more life than you know what to do with, you might as well run a Felidar Sovereign and a Test of Endurance and get a win out of it. My last suggestion for improving your deck is making use of a combo you're basically already set up to use, between Revelark and Karmic Guide. Starting this combo off is pretty simple. First, either cast Revelark for his evoke cost, or put him on the battlefield and have a sack outlet in place. When Revelark leaves the battlefield either due to its evoke cost or a sack outlet, you're gonna nab Karmic Guide and any other creature with power 2 or less and put it on the battlefield. Now Karmic Guide's Enter the Battlefield ability will trigger and bring the freshly killed Revelark back from your graveyard and put him back on the battlefield. Running this combo in conjunction with sack outlets like Viscera Seer will allow you to scry through your deck until you find exactly the piece you need to win the game. Altar of Dementia will give you the ability to infinitely mill your opponents. But the best of the bunch is Ashnod's Altar, which lets you generate as much colorless mana as you please. If we use Ashnod's Altar as the example, you can see that if you sack Revelark to it, you gain 2 colorless mana and activate Revelark's trigger. With Revelark's trigger, we'll bring back Karmic Guide and let's say Blood Artist. Using Karmic Guide's trigger, go figure, we'll bring Revelark back to the battlefield. Now we've got a nice loop in place, but we have to use Ashnod's Altar properly in order to keep this loop going. It all starts by sacrificing Karmic Guide and Blood Artist first. In order for Revelark's ability to work, those 2 creatures have to be in the graveyard in order for his ability to have legal targets. Pairing the Karmic Guide Revelark loop with Zulaport Cutthroat or Blood Artist allows you to infinitely drain your opponent's life totals. Pair it with Pawn of Ulamog or Elenda the Dusk Rose and you can make an infinite amount of either Eldrazi Spawn or Vampire tokens. And using either of the Soul Sisters will give you infinite life, which will make your Aetherflux Reservoir very happy. Or if we use our little buddy from earlier, Knight of the White Orchid, you can fetch every single Plains card in your deck and put them on the battlefield untapped. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it was a little different than the norm, but it was a lot of fun to make. Using the ideas I've showcased here today, I created my own Ayli Eternal Pilgrim deck list, and I put a link to that in the description below, and you guys should definitely check that out. I'd also like to give a shout out to Nick. Thank you, man, for sharing your deck with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out today. If you like this video and you want more just like it, hit that like button. If you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe, and welcome to the Deck Builder Society. And if you want to be among the first people to know when I release a new video, ring that notification bell. You know the drill. Stay classy, deck builders. I'll see you next time.